today we're going to be working on angle relationships and parallel lines. And there's going to be some new vocabulary dealing with types of angles and types of relationships between those angles. The first one we're going to talk about today is adjacent angles. And these are two angles that share a vertex, which is kind of the hinge. And so there's two angles, one here and one here, that share this vertex together, and they also have a side in common. So here's one angle, here's another angle, they have this side in common, and here's that vertex. That makes this and this adjacent angles. We also have vertical angles. Vertical angles are formed by two intersecting lines, like these. They're opposite each other, which would be top and bottom. We would also have vertical angles this would be a vertical angle, and these would be vertical angles. And these have the same measurement. We mark that by using these two lines with the same number of lines on the angles that are equal. When things have the same measurement, those are congruent. And you're going to see that again later in this lesson. So we have congruent angles are equal measures. Vertical angles are opposite each other when you have two intersecting lines, and adjacent angles combine, they touch together, they sit next to each other and have a common side and a common vertex. In supplementary angles, these are two that you can use some math to figure out. And supplementary angles, the sum of the angles is 180 degrees, which means it opens up to a straight line. So this angle plus this angle equal 180 degrees. So that means that 45 and 135 are supplementary angles. Complementary angles, the sum of the angles is 90 degrees. So 90 degrees is straight up and straight out to the side. And so these would be 30 degrees plus 60 degrees is 90 degrees. So 30 degrees and 60 degrees would be complementary angles. So knowing what adjacent angles are and vertical angles, we're going to take a look at using those vertical angles. These are also vertical angles. And knowing that these are going to be the same measurement, we can mark those. That's one, and we can put 2 on that and 2 on that. So we know that those are going to have the same measurements. We also know that A and B are going to be 180 degrees combined, because A and B are, angles that we can combine together to make 180 degrees. So if measure of angle A is 20 degrees, find the measures of angles B, C, and D. So angle C, we know right off the bat. Angle C is a vertical angle, and it's going to be the same here and here. So if A is 20 degrees, C is also 20 degrees. Okay. B, we can figure out because A plus B is going to give us 180 degrees. So we have to do a little bit of math on that. And we can just put A plus B equals 180 degrees. And if I know A is 20, I can take that out, put the 20 in there, and now I can do a little bit of math by moving it around. Take this 20 over here, and actually when it crosses the equal sign, it becomes minus 20. So I can take it right off, and then I have B equals 180 minus 20. 180 minus 20 is 60 degrees. So knowing that B is 60 degrees, I can also easily figure out what D is because of vertical angles. So if this is B and it's 60 degrees, D should be 180 degrees, or sorry, should be 60 degrees as well. So the measure of A is 20 degrees. The measure of B is 60 degrees. C is 20 degrees. And D is opposite here, it's going to be 60 degrees as well. Now, working with a little bit more vocabulary, we're looking at transversals, corresponding angles, and alternate interior angles. And I know I'm throwing a lot of vocabulary at you, but you just need to get familiar with it, and we'll solidify it again tomorrow in class. Transversal is a line that intersects two other lines in different points. It's named with a line, okay, with a line name. So we denote a line with either a cursive or an italicized letter. And so we have a line that intersects two other lines in different points. And the different points thing is very important. So we have a line here and a line here. And this line right here intersects both of those lines, or crosses both of those lines at different points. It crosses here and it crosses here. So line A, crossing those, is a transversal. And a transversal is just a name for a line. Corresponding angles lay on the same side of the transversal. So this is the transversal line. They lay on the same side, so they're either going to be over here or they're both going to be over here. So corresponding angles are going to deal with the same side of that transversal line. And they're in corresponding positions. For instance, 1 and 5 are corresponding angles. 3 and 7 would be corresponding angles. And we can fill that in right there. We have 2 and 6 are corresponding angles. So the other corresponding angle we have here is 4 and 8. Alternate interior angles is a lot of words, but it's okay. It's actually just kind of jump across the line and find that corresponding angle. So it's an interior of a pair of lines, the interior of a pair of lines. So we're looking at these in here, okay? The area between those two lines is this area right here. And we're talking about opposite sides of the transversal. So opposite sides of the transversal. So we're looking at 3 and 6 are on opposite sides of that transversal. 4 and 5 would be opposite sides of that transversal. 4 and 5. Okay. So on to some practice. In the diagram, line L is parallel to line M. Identify each of the following. Congruent corresponding angles. What does that mean? Congruent, if you remember, means equal. So they're equal angles, equal measurements. They're corresponding, so it means they're going to be in same places. So are there any congruent corresponding angles? Go ahead and hit pause, try to figure this out, and then come back to us and we'll see what we can come up with. Congruent corresponding angles, you can actually see when the lines are parallel. It's pretty easy because you can see that this measurement and this measurement are about the same. And so yes, the one set of congruent corresponding angles would be 1 and 3. So angles 1 and angle 3 are a set of congruent corresponding angles. Another would be 7 and 5 would be. Another would be 8 and 6 and 2 and 4. That's all the congruent corresponding angles, excuse me. We have congruent alternate interior angles. And again, we're dealing with only between the lines. Okay. Alternate interior angles are congruent and opposite sides of the lines. So if you look, 7 and 3 would be, and 2 and 6. And you can kind of gauge that by this and this are about the same distance apart, and this are about the same distance apart. So what does that mean for your assignment? Well, your assignment says, in the diagram, line A is parallel to line B. Name. You have 2 parts to your assignment. 4 pairs of congruent corresponding angles, and 2 pairs of congruent alternate interior angles. Remembering that congruent means equal measures. Corresponding, we're talking about same places. same spots in the system. And alternate interior is going to deal with those ones that come between those two parallel lines. So this is what I expect you to have for me for tomorrow for notes after you've watched this video.